I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. At 58 years old, I thought I knew my husband. 32 years of marriage, shared meals, shared dreams, a daughter we raised together. But the night a stranger at Walmart whispered a warning that saved my life, I discovered the man sleeping beside me had been planning to steal everything, including the home my late mother left me. She told me, "When your husband leaves tonight, don't touch the snow in your yard until sunrise." I thought she was crazy. I had no idea that following her advice would reveal footprints leading straight to my husband's betrayal and a plot to sell my house from under me for gambling debts I never knew existed. What happened next changed everything. The weather forecast had been warning us for 3 days. Major winter storm system moving through the Midwest. 8 to 12 inches expected. Travel not recommended. I stood at my kitchen window that Tuesday afternoon watching the first fat snowflakes begin to fall. December 15th, 10 days before Christmas. The sky had that peculiar yellow-gray color it gets before a big storm, heavy and oppressive, pressing down on our quiet street in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Our house, my mother's house really, though I'd lived here for 32 years, sat at the end of Maple Street, a modest 2-story colonial with white siding and black shutters. Nothing fancy, but it was paid for, which was more than most people could say. Mom had worked 2 jobs her entire life to keep this roof over our heads, and when she passed 5 years ago, she'd left it to me. Just to me, not to Lucas. The deed had my name, only Sarah Elizabeth Morrison Mitchell. I touched the cold window glass, my breath fogging it slightly. The street was already emptying out. Mr. Henderson across the way was salting his driveway. The Petersons next door had their garage door open. I could see them loading extra firewood into their mudroom, preparing to hunker down. My lower back ached. It always did when the weather changed. The chronic pain from my injury had forced me into early retirement from nursing 3 years ago. Some days were better than others. Today wasn't one of the good ones. Behind me, I heard Lucas's heavy footsteps on the stairs. "Storm's starting," I called out, not turning around. "Yeah, I saw." His voice was flat, distracted. I glanced over my shoulder. Lucas Mitchell stood in the doorway between the kitchen and living room, wearing his usual uniform, faded jeans, a flannel shirt, work boots, even though he was inside. At 61, he still had most of his hair, though it had gone completely gray in the last few years. He'd put on weight around his middle we both had, but he was still strong from decades of hauling freight. He was staring at his phone, his thumb scrolling rapidly. His jaw was clenched tight the way it got when he was stressed. "Everything okay?" I asked. He looked up sharply, almost startled. "What, yeah? Fine." It wasn't fine. I'd known him long enough to read the signs. For the past 6 months, maybe longer, something had been off. Lucas had always been a quiet man, not much for conversation, but lately the silence had turned cold. He was irritable, snapping at small things. He'd lock himself in the little office upstairs, the spare bedroom he'd claimed as his own, for hours at a time. And the phone calls. Always stepping outside or going to another room. Always turning his screen away when I walked by. "I need to go to Walmart before the storm gets bad," I said, turning back to the window. "We're low on coffee, and I want to get some things for Christmas cookies. Emma's coming home next week, remember?" At the mention of our daughter, Lucas's expression softened slightly. "How's she doing out there in Seattle?" "Good. Busy with work. She says the tech company is crazy this time of year." "She send any money this month?" I frowned. "Why would she send money? Emma's doing well, but she's not Lucas. We don't need her money." He made a noise in his throat, something between a grunt and a laugh. "Right, sure." Before I could ask what that meant, he was already heading toward the front hall closet where he kept his heavy winter coat and the duffel bag he used for long hauls. "You have a run tonight," I called after him. "In this weather. Got called for an emergency delivery. Chicago to Des Moines. They're paying double because of the storm." I walked to the hallway. Lucas was pulling out his bag, checking the pockets. "Lucas, that's dangerous. Can't someone else take it? We need the money, Sarah." "We're fine. We don't need— I said we need the money." He snapped it out, his voice sharp enough to make me flinch. We stood there in silence. The furnace kicked on warm air rushing through the vents. Outside, the snow was falling harder now, thick white flakes swirling in the growing wind. Lucas's shoulders sagged. "Sorry, I'm just stressed. Work stuff. Look, I'll be careful, okay? I've driven through worse than this." I wanted to push to ask what was really going on, but the wall between us felt so high lately. Every conversation seemed to end in tension or silence. "What time do you leave?" I asked quietly. "Need to head out by 10. It's a tight schedule." I glanced at my watch. 4:30. "I'm going to Walmart now before it gets worse. Do you need anything?" "No." He was back to scrolling on his phone, his face illuminated by the blue glow. "Actually, Sarah," I waited. He looked up, and something in his expression made my stomach tighten. His eyes were hard, calculating. "When you get back, I need you to clear the driveway and the walkway. All of it. Tonight." "Tonight, Lucas, it's going to snow all evening. Whatever I clear will I need it done tonight, before I leave at 10. His tone left no room for argument. "I'm leaving at 4 a.m. for this run. If the snow freezes overnight, the truck won't make it out. I need a clear path. No ice, no snow packed down. You understand?" My back twitched, a sharp reminder of why I couldn't do heavy physical labor anymore. "Lucas, I can't. My back is already acting up from the weather. I'll get up early tomorrow, and it needs to be done tonight, Sarah." He took a step closer. "This run pays $2,400. We need that money. If I can't get the truck out in the morning, I lose the job. Do you understand what I'm saying?" There was something in his voice I'd never heard before. Not just anger, something colder. I'll try," I said, though I knew my back wouldn't let me. "Maybe I can ask Mr. Henderson to help, or no." Lucas said it fast, too fast. "Don't ask the neighbors. I don't want them in our business. You can do it. Just use the light shovel. Take breaks. But it needs to be done before 11. Before 11. Not before he left. Before 11 specifically. I opened my mouth to ask why the specific time mattered, but Lucas was already heading upstairs, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and urgent as he spoke to someone. I stood in the hallway, my heart beating faster than it should. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The Walmart parking lot was already half empty by the time I pulled in at 5:15. Smart people were home, stocked up, ready to wait out the storm. I parked as close to the entrance as I could and pulled my coat tighter. The wind had picked up, cutting through the fabric like it wasn't even there. Inside the store had that strange atmosphere that happens before a storm. Fluorescent lights too bright, people moving with purpose, carts filled with bread and milk, like we were preparing for the apocalypse instead of a snowstorm. I grabbed a cart and headed for the coffee aisle first. My mind was still turning over Lucas's insistence about the driveway. It didn't make sense. Yes, he needed to get out in the morning, but snow was forecast all night. Anything I cleared at 10 would be covered again by 4 a.m. Why did it matter so much, and why had he been so specific about the time? "Don't touch the snow." I shook my head. I was being paranoid. Lucas was stressed about money he'd made that clear. Maybe things were tighter than I realized. Maybe that's why he'd been so secretive about the bank statements lately, why he always said, "Let me handle it," when I asked about our accounts. I moved through the store in a daze, picking up items without really thinking: coffee flour, sugar chocolate chips for cookies Emma loved, a bag of the peppermint candies my mother used to keep in a crystal dish on the coffee table. I held the bag for a moment, remembering her hands wrinkled and strong, always moving, always working. "Baby girl," she used to call me even when I was 50 years old. "You're stronger than you know. Don't you ever forget that." If only she could see me now. 58. Early retirement forced by injury, walking on eggshells around a husband who felt like a stranger. I was in the baking aisle when I heard a commotion from the front of the store. Raised voices. I turned to see a small crowd gathering near the checkout lanes. Curiosity pulled me toward the sound. At register 7, an elderly black woman stood with her hands clasped together, her shoulders hunched as if trying to make herself smaller. She was maybe 75, wearing a threadbare winter coat that had seen better decades. Her shopping cart held the basics: milk bread, a package of chicken, some rice canned vegetables, and children's items, juice boxes, graham crackers, a small toy truck. The cashier, a young woman with bleached blonde hair and a name tag that read Kylie, was speaking in that loud, slow voice people use when they think someone is stupid. "Ma'am, I've told you 3 times. Your card was declined. You don't have enough money." I thought I had enough," the elderly woman said softly. Her voice carried the gentle cadence of the South. "Could you try it again, please? Sometimes the machine makes mistakes." Kylie sighed dramatically and ran the card again. The machine beeped. "Declined? You're short $47. Behind the elderly woman, a man in an expensive North Face jacket checked his watch and sighed loudly. Come on, lady. Some of us have places to be. The elderly woman's hands were shaking now. Could I put some things back? The children need their milk and crackers. I can do without. We don't have time for this, the man behind her said. Either pay or move. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was thinking about my mother. Maybe it was the way the old woman was trying so hard to maintain her dignity while the world treated her as an inconvenience. Maybe it was the toy truck in her cart, clearly for a grandchild bought with money she couldn't afford to spend. I stepped forward, pulling my wallet from my purse. I'll pay for it, I said. Everyone turned to look at me. Kylie's eyes narrowed. The impatient man looked annoyed that his entertainment was ending, and the elderly woman turned to me with eyes that seemed to see straight through to my soul. Oh, honey, you don't need to, she started. Please, I said, handing my credit card to Kylie. It's no trouble. It's $47, Kylie said, as if I might change my mind. I can count, I replied, keeping my voice pleasant but firm. Kylie processed the payment with visible reluctance, as if doing a kindness personally inconvenienced her. The elderly woman watched me the entire time, her eyes bright with unshed tears. When the receipt printed, I took it and my card back. You can go ahead and bag her items, I told Kylie. The impatient man behind us huffed and switched to another lane. God bless you, the elderly woman said. I don't know how to thank you. My grandbabies, they're staying with me now, and Money's been tight since... You don't need to explain, I said gently. I pulled a 20 from my wallet. Here, for the children. Buy them something extra. Her hand closed around the bill, and that's when she grabbed my wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong for someone so frail-looking. Her skin was paper-thin, spotted with age, but warm. She held my eyes, and I saw something there that made my breath catch. Not just gratitude, something deeper. Recognition, maybe, or warning. Come outside with me, she said quietly. I need to speak with you. Please. I should have said no. I should have politely declined, collected my groceries, and gone home. But there was something in her voice, an urgency that overrode my usual Midwestern caution. Okay, I heard myself say. We finished checking out. I bought my few items, she gathered her bags. Together we walked toward the exit. The automatic doors slid open and the winter wind hit us like a slap. The snow was falling thick now, the parking lot already coated white. The elderly woman turned to face me, still holding one of my hands in both of hers. Up close, I could see the fine lines around her eyes, the silver in her hair that had once been black. And I noticed for the first time the bracelet on her wrist. Silver, old, tarnished, with words engraved for those who see. My heart stopped. My mother had owned a bracelet exactly like that. She'd worn it every day until she died. At her funeral, I'd looked for it among her things, but never found it. I'd assumed it had been lost or buried with her. You knew my mother, I whispered. The woman's grip tightened. Dorothy Hayes. Your mama and I were girls together long time ago. Lost touch when I moved south, but I never forgot Sarah Morrison. She had a gift, your mama. She could sense things, see things before they happened. I don't understand. Hush now and listen. Dorothy's voice dropped lower, urgent. I saw you in there and I knew you were Charlotte's girl, got her eyes, her spirit, and I knew I was meant to be here today, meant to warn you. The snow swirled around us. In the parking lot, a car started headlights cutting through the white. Warn me about what? Dorothy's eyes bore into mine. Child, I see darkness circling your home. Tonight when your husband leaves, do not touch the snow in your yard, not until sunrise. You hear me? Let it stay pure and untouched. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. Why, what are you talking about? The snow will show you what's been hidden. Dorothy released one of my hands to touch the bracelet at her wrist. There's a man who pretends to love you, but he's already sold pieces of your life. The snow is your witness. Trust what you see, not what you're told. Lucas, I breathed. Are you talking about my husband? I'm talking about betrayal, honey. About secrets that leave footprints. She squeezed my hand one last time. Your mama's spirit sent me here today. She says it's time for you to see clearly. Time to stop being blind to what's right in front of you. But how do you know? How could you possibly? Dorothy smiled, sad and knowing. Some of us, we see things. Your mama had the gift. Looks like maybe you got it too buried deep. Tonight you'll understand. Just remember, don't touch that snow. Let it tell you its secrets." She released my hand and picked up her grocery bags. I stood frozen, my mind reeling. "Wait!" I called out as she started to walk away. "Where can I find you? How do I—" "You'll find me when you need me," Dorothy said over her shoulder. "Take care, Sarah Mitchell, and trust your instincts. Deep down, you already know something's wrong. Stop ignoring what you feel." Then she was gone, disappearing into the swirling snow, her figure becoming indistinct, then vanishing entirely. I stood there in the parking lot, snowflakes catching in my hair, melting on my cheeks, that might have been wet with tears or might just have been the snow. Don't touch the snow. He's already sold pieces of your life. Trust what you see. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Lucas. "Where are you? Did you get the stuff? Don't forget about the driveway. Must be done by 11. I looked at the message for a long moment. Then I looked at my hands still warm from Dorothy's grip, and I made a decision that would change everything. By the time I pulled into our driveway, it was almost 6:30, and the snow was falling in sheets. The world had gone white and silent, that peculiar muffled quiet that comes with heavy snow. I could barely see the Hendersons' house across the street. Lucas's truck was still in the driveway, which meant he hadn't left yet. Good. Or maybe not good. I wasn't sure what I was feeling anymore. I grabbed the grocery bags from the trunk and hurried inside my boots, already soaked through. The warmth of the house hit me like a wall. Lucas was in the kitchen, standing at the counter with his phone pressed to his ear. "I told you it'll be done," he was saying, his voice low and intense. "She'll take care of it tonight. You can come at midnight. Safe window is between midnight and 2 a.m. Make it quick, though. In and out." He hadn't heard me come in. I stood frozen in the doorway, grocery bags cutting into my hands. Yeah, I got it," Lucas continued. "No lights. Park on the street, not in the driveway. And for God's sake, be quiet. If she wakes up—" He paused, listening. "No, she won't. I'll make sure she takes her pain meds. She sleeps like the dead when she's on those." My breath caught in my throat. Lucas turned and saw me. For a split second, his face went white. Then he recovered his expression, smoothing out. "Hey, I'll call you back," he said into the phone and hung up. "Who was that?" I tried to keep my voice casual, but it came out shaky. "Work. Just coordinating the pickup time for tomorrow's run." He took the grocery bags from me, his touch impersonal. "You get everything?" "Yes." I watched him unload the bags, his movements jerky, nervous. "Lucas, what did you mean about me clearing the driveway tonight? I heard you say something about midnight." "You misheard." He said it too quickly. "I was talking about my schedule. I need to be on the road by midnight to make the delivery window." "You said 4 a.m. before." His jaw clenched. "I said 4 a.m. loading time, midnight departure." "Jesus, Sarah, do you have to question everything?" I stepped back, stung. "I was just asking." "Well, don't. I've got enough stress without you interrogating me." He slammed the cabinet door after putting away the coffee. "Did you clear the driveway yet?" "Lucas, it's still snowing. Anything I do now will just—" "I don't care if it's still snowing. I told you it needs to be done by 11. That gives you 4.5 hours. He turned to face me fully, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Something cold and calculated. "This is important, Sarah. The most important thing I've asked you to do in a long time. Can you just for once do what I ask without arguing?" The words hit like a slap. In 32 years of marriage, Lucas had never spoken to me that way. Dismissed me like I was a child, like I was in the way. He's already sold pieces of your life. Dorothy's words echoed in my head. "My back hurts," I said quietly. "The weather makes it worse. You know that." "Then take your pain pills. They're in the bathroom cabinet." "Those make me drowsy. I can't operate heavy equipment when I'm—" "A snow shovel is not heavy equipment." His voice rose sharp enough to make me flinch. Then he seemed to catch himself running a hand through his gray hair. "Look, I'm sorry. I'm stressed about this run. The money is—" "We really need this money, Sarah. Please, just do this one thing for me." I wanted to ask why we needed money so desperately. We were careful, always had been. My nursing pension wasn't much, but Lucas made decent money driving. We owned the house free and clear. What had changed? But his face was so closed off, so angry that I couldn't find the words. "I'll try," I said finally. "I'll do my best. That's all I ask." But his voice said he expected more than my best. He expected compliance. He grabbed his duffel bag from the hallway. "I'm going to load the truck and do a final check. I'll be back in an hour or so. When I get back, I want to see that driveway clear. Understand?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. He left without kissing me goodbye, without even looking back. I stood in the kitchen listening to the truck engine start watching through the window as his taillights disappeared into the snow. The house felt huge and empty around me, cold despite the heat running. My phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out and stared at the screen. I could call Emma, tell her something was wrong, ask her what to do. But what would I say? "Your father is acting strange. He wants me to shovel snow and it seems suspicious. She'd think I was being paranoid." She always took Lucas's side. "Dad works so hard, Mom. Don't stress him out with little things." I opened the browser on my phone instead. My fingers shook as I typed in the search, "sudden need to clear snow suspicious behavior." Nothing useful came up. I tried again, husband acting strange secretive phone calls, hundreds of results. Infidelity forums, divorce support groups, financial fraud warnings. My heart was pounding now. I went to our bank's website and tried to log in to our joint checking account. The password I'd used for years didn't work. Invalid password. Please try again. I tried 3 more times. Same message. Lucas had changed it. When I tried our savings account next. Same thing. Invalid password. He'd locked me out. Out of our money. Our accounts that I'd contributed to for 32 years. The pain in my back flared sharp and hot. I grabbed the edge of the counter, breathing through it. The pills were upstairs in the bathroom cabinet. Lucas had told me to take them. I'll make sure she takes her pain meds. She sleeps like the dead when she's on those. No. Whatever was happening tonight, I needed to be awake for it. Alert. I went to the front window and looked out at the driveway. Already there was a good 3 inches of snow, smooth and unmarked, except for the tracks from Lucas's truck pulling out. "Don't touch the snow," Dorothy had said. "Let it stay pure and untouched. The snow will show you what's been hidden." I made my decision. I wasn't touching that snow. Not tonight. Not even if Lucas came home and raged at me. Not even if it cost me my marriage. Because deep down in a place I'd been ignoring for months, maybe years, I knew. Something terrible was about to happen. And the only way to survive it was to see it clearly. Lucas came back at 8:30, stomping snow off his boots in the mudroom. I was sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of tea cooling in front of me, trying to look relaxed, trying to look like a wife who had obeyed her husband's orders. He looked out the window at the driveway, still covered in snow, and his face went red. "You didn't do it." "Lucas, my back." "I don't want to hear about your goddamn back." He slammed his fist on the counter, making me jump. "I asked you to do one thing, one simple thing, and you couldn't even do that." I'd never seen him like this. In 32 years, Lucas had never been violent, never raised a hand. But now his whole body was rigid with fury, his fists clenched, veins standing out on his neck. "The snow is too deep now anyway," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I couldn't have made a difference. It's still coming down. I'll get up early tomorrow before you leave, and it's too late." He turned away, his hand going to his phone. He typed something rapidly, his jaw working. Then he looked at me with something that might have been hatred or fear. "You've ruined everything." "What are you talking about? It's just snow." "You don't understand anything." He grabbed his duffel bag again. "I'm leaving now. Early. I can't be here." "Lucas, what's going on? Please talk to me." "There's nothing to talk about." He headed for the door, then stopped, his back to me. "Don't bother getting up early. The run's canceled. They found someone else." The lie was obvious in his voice. "Why are you lying to me?" The words came out before I could stop them. He spun around. For a moment I thought he might actually hit me. His face was twisted with rage and something else, panic. "You want the truth, Sarah? Fine. Here's the truth." His voice dropped to something cold and venomous. "I've been carrying this family for 32 years. I've worked my ass off while you sat at home complaining about your back, your pain, how hard everything is. Do you know what it's like to be the only one responsible for keeping us afloat? I worked as a nurse for 25 years. And then you quit. I was injured, I couldn't. There's always a reason why you can't do something." He laughed bitterly. "Can't work. Can't manage money. Can't even shovel a goddamn driveway when I ask. You're useless, Sarah. Absolutely useless." Each word was a knife. I felt them cutting, felt something inside me bleeding out. "That's not fair," I whispered. "Fair." He stepped closer. "You want to talk about fair? This house, your precious mother's house that you won't shut up about. Do you have any idea how much it's worth? How much money is just sitting here locked up in walls and floors while we struggle? We don't struggle. We have enough. We have nothing. He was shouting now, his face inches from mine. And you know what I'm done. Done pretending. Done playing the devoted husband to a woman who contributes nothing. I stood up, my legs shaking. Lucas, what is happening? What have you done? What have I done? He laughed again, high and slightly unhinged. I've done what I had to do. What I should have done years ago. This house, Sarah, it's not just yours. I've lived here for 32 years. I've paid for repairs, for taxes, for everything. I have rights, too. The deed is in my name. Is it? His smile was cruel. Are you sure about that? My blood went cold. What did you do? Get some sleep, Sarah. Tomorrow's going to be a very interesting day. He grabbed his bag and headed for the door. By the way, you might want to start looking at apartments, small ones, because you're going to need a place to live very soon. Lucas, but he was gone. The door slammed. His truck engine roared to life and then taillights disappeared into the snow once more. I stood in the empty kitchen, my whole body trembling, not from cold, from a rage so deep and pure I could taste it. He'd done something to the house, something involving tonight, involving the snow, involving whoever he'd told to come at midnight. I looked at the clock. 9:47 p.m. Don't touch the snow, Dorothy had said. The snow will show you what's been hidden. I turned off all the lights in the house, except one small lamp in the living room far from the windows. Then I went upstairs to my bedroom, our bedroom, though it hadn't felt like ours in so long, and positioned myself by the window where I could see the front yard and driveway. The snow was still falling thick and relentless. The street was empty, everyone tucked safely in their homes. The world felt suspended, holding its breath. I waited. At 11:34, my phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. You destroyed everything. I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. At 12:07 a.m., a vehicle turned onto our street. I pressed closer to the window, my heart hammering. It was a dark SUV, maybe black or navy blue. It drove slowly, carefully, like the driver was looking for an address. Then it stopped, right in front of our house. The driver's side door opened. A man got out. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, wearing dark slacks and a long winter coat, the kind you'd wear to the office, not for breaking into houses. He was carrying a briefcase or messenger bag. In the glow of the streetlight, I could see his face clearly clean-shaven, probably mid-40s with short dark hair. He stood there for a moment looking at the house. Then he checked his phone, texted something, and started walking up our driveway, into the snow. His footsteps were clear and deliberate dark impressions in the white. He walked slowly, methodically, going to the right side of the house, first stopping at each window. He'd peer in, make a note on a small tablet he'd pulled from his bag, then move on. He went around the entire house this way. Living room window, dining room, kitchen. Then, around back, I lost sight of him for a few minutes, my panic rising. Then he reappeared on the other side, checking the garage, the office window upstairs. He spent a particularly long time at our bedroom window, just standing there looking in. I was hidden by the curtain, but my skin crawled. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably only about 20 minutes, he returned to his vehicle. He sat inside for a while, the interior light on, writing or typing something. Then he drove away. I sat on the floor, my back against the wall, trying to process what I'd just seen. A man, at our house, at midnight, walking around looking in windows, taking notes. Not a burglar. Burglars don't wear business clothes and carry briefcases. Burglars don't move that slowly and methodically. But if not a burglar, then who? And why had Lucas been so desperate for me to clear the snow? The answer hit me like ice water. Because if I'd cleared the snow, there would be no evidence, no footprints, no proof that anyone had been here. The snow will show you what's been hidden. I looked out the window at the perfect unmarked snow of our front lawn, now marred by a clear trail of footprints. Evidence. Proof. Proof of what I barely slept. I sat by that window all night, watching, waiting to see if the man would return. He didn't. When dawn finally broke gray and cold, I went downstairs and made coffee with shaking hands. The house felt different. Violated. Like someone had walked through it, even though all the doors were locked. At 7:30, I couldn't take it anymore. I bundled up in my warmest coat and went outside. The snow had finally stopped. Everything was pristine and white, except for one glaring exception, the trail of footprints. I followed them with my eyes. Driveway. Around to the right of the house. Every window. The back door he'd tried the handle. I could see the disturbance in the snow. Around the other side. The garage. Back to his car. And there, half buried in the snow near the garage door, something caught the morning light. I walked over carefully, trying not to disturb the prints. I knelt down my back, screaming in protest, and picked it up. A business card. White. Expensive cardstock. Slightly damp from the snow. I brushed it off and read Nathan Rodriguez, Senior Property Assessor, Pinnacle Real Estate Solutions. Accurate valuations for your peace of mind. Below that, a phone number and email address. A property assessor. At my house. At midnight. I stood in my front yard at 7:30 in the morning holding a business card that made no sense, staring at footprints that shouldn't exist. Nathan Rodriguez, Senior Property Assessor. Property assessors don't come to houses at midnight. They don't sneak around looking in windows while the owners sleep. They make appointments. They come during business hours. They knock on doors, unless they're being paid to do something they shouldn't be doing. My hands were shaking so badly the card fluttered in the cold morning air. I pulled out my phone and took pictures. Lots of pictures. The footprints, the business card, the path around the house, every angle I could think of. Then I went inside my wet boots, leaving tracks on the hardwood floor I would have scolded Lucas for. I didn't care. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the card for a long time. Finally, I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report a trespasser. Someone was on my property last night, at midnight. Are they still there, ma'am? No, they left hours ago. But I have evidence. Footprints in the snow, and they dropped a business card. There was a pause. Ma'am, if the person has left and you're not in immediate danger, you'll need to call the non-emergency line to file a report. Please, my voice cracked. Something is very wrong. I think my husband arranged for this person to come. I think something illegal is happening. Another pause, longer this time. Stay on the line, ma'am. I'm going to connect you with an officer. 20 minutes later, a Cedar Falls police cruiser pulled up in front of my house. I watched from the window as a man in uniform got out, taking care not to disturb the footprints. He was maybe 45 with graying brown hair and a kind face weathered by Iowa winters. I met him at the door before he could knock. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Officer James Donnelly. He had a slight Irish lilt to his voice, the kind that comes from growing up in a house where the old country was still talked about. You called about a trespasser. Yes, please come in. But carefully, the footprints. I see them. He looked at the trail around the house, his expression growing more serious. How about you tell me what happened from the beginning? So I did. I told him about Lucas's strange insistence that I clear the snow. The midnight visitor. The business card. I didn't mention Dorothy's warning that seemed too strange, too unbelievable, but I told him everything else. Officer Donnelly listened without interrupting, taking notes in a small notebook. When I finished, he looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Mrs. Mitchell, do you have any security cameras? No, I always thought we live in a safe neighborhood. I never thought we needed them. What about your neighbors? The Petersons next door might. They had some trouble with package thieves last year and installed a camera facing the street. Let's go talk to them. Mrs. Peterson was still in her bathrobe when she answered the door, her gray hair in curlers. But when she saw Officer Donnelly's uniform, her eyes went wide. Oh my goodness, Sarah, are you all right? Did something happen? I'm fine, Helen, but Officer Donnelly needs to see your security footage from last night, around midnight. Helen Peterson's face went serious. Come in, Bob, get down here. Sarah needs our camera footage. Bob Peterson appeared at the top of the stairs, pulling on a sweatshirt. What's going on? Police need the security video, Helen said. From last night. It took Bob 20 minutes to figure out how to download the footage to a USB drive. Damn technology, I swear to God, who makes these things so complicated. But finally, Officer Donnelly had it. We went back to my house. Donnelly set up his laptop on my kitchen table, and together we watched. The timestamp read 12:07 a.m. A dark Ford Explorer newer model pulled slowly up the street. No license plate visible. The angle was wrong, or maybe it had been deliberately obscured. It parked directly in front of my house. The driver's side door opened. The man from last night stepped out clear as day in the streetlight. He looked around, checking to make sure no one was watching, then walked up my driveway. The camera couldn't capture everything, but it got enough. We saw him disappear around the side of the house. 72 minutes later, I watched the timestamp tick by, my stomach churning. He returned to his vehicle. But before he got in, he paused, pulled out his phone, made a call. Officer Donnelly paused the video. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." My mouth went dry. "Okay. Is there any reason your husband would want to have your property assessed without your knowledge?" "I don't know. I mean, we own this house together, but the deed is in my name. My mother left it to me. Just to you, not to both of you. Just me. Lucas's name isn't on the deed." Donnelly's expression darkened. "And your husband was very insistent that you clear the driveway last night, specifically before 11. Yes? Did he give a reason?" "He said he needed to get his truck out early this morning for a delivery, but then he left last night anyway, and he texted me later saying the run was canceled." "May I see that text?" I showed him my phone. Donnelly took pictures of the messages, his jaw tight. "Mrs. Mitchell, I need to make a call. Do you mind if I use your home phone? I want to keep this official, and I need a landline for the recording." "Of course. It's right there." I watched as Officer Donnelly dialed the number on Nathan Rodriguez's business card. He put the phone on speaker. "Pinnacle Real Estate Solutions. How may I direct your call?" "Nathan Rodriguez, please. This is Officer James Donnelly, Cedar Falls Police Department." A pause. "One moment, please." The hold music was some generic classical piece. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly freezing despite the warm house. "This is Nathan Rodriguez." The voice was smooth, professional. I recognized it. I'd heard him talking on his phone last night before he drove away, the sound carrying in the cold air. "Mr. Rodriguez, this is Officer Donnelly with the Cedar Falls PD. I'm calling regarding a trespassing incident at 1247 Maple Street. Were you at that address at approximately midnight last night?" Silence. "Then, I'd like to speak with my attorney before answering any questions." "That's your right, sir. But I should inform you that we have video footage of your vehicle and a business card you dropped on the property. We're treating this as a criminal trespassing case unless you can provide documentation that you had permission to be there." More silence. I could hear Rodriguez breathing, could almost feel him calculating. "I was hired to perform a property assessment," he said finally, "by the co-owner of the property." My stomach dropped. "The property is owned solely by Mrs. Sarah Mitchell," Donnelly said. "Do you have written authorization from her?" "I have authorization from Lucas Mitchell. He provided documentation showing he had power of attorney to act on his wife's behalf regarding the property." The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table. "Power of attorney," I whispered. "I never gave him power of attorney." Donnelly held up a hand, his eyes on me, sharp and focused. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'm going to need you to provide copies of all documentation related to this assessment. You can email them to the Cedar Falls Police Department within the next 2 hours, or we can obtain them via warrant. Your choice." "I'll send them," Rodriguez said quickly. Too quickly. "But I want to be clear, I was hired in good faith. If there's a dispute between the property owners, that's a civil matter, not criminal." "That remains to be seen," Donnelly said. 2 hours, Mr. Rodriguez." He hung up. I was standing now, pacing, my mind racing. "Power of attorney, James Officer Donnelly. I never signed anything like that. I would remember. I would never—" "When was the last time you had surgery?" Donnelly asked quietly. I stopped pacing. "What surgery? Medical procedure? Anything where you would have been under anesthesia?" The room went cold. 3 months ago, I heard myself say. "I had a spinal procedure for my back injury. Lucas drove me to the hospital, stayed with me during recovery. I was unconscious for about 4 hours. Donnelly's face told me everything I needed to know. "Oh God," I whispered. "He did it while I was under. He forged my signature while I couldn't, My legs gave out. I sat down hard on one of the kitchen chairs. "Mrs. Mitchell, I need you to stay calm," Donnelly said, but his voice was gentle. "I need to ask you some more questions. Do you have access to your joint bank accounts?" "No, I tried to log in last night. He changed the passwords." "Do you know the name of your bank?" "First National. We've been with them for 30 years. "And do you have any individual accounts? Anything in just your name?" "I have a small savings account from before we were married." maybe $3,000 in it. I haven't touched it in years. That's good. That's yours legally. He can't touch it. Donnelly pulled out his phone. I'm going to call a friend of mine. She's a family law attorney, one of the best. You're going to need her. Attorney Margaret Stanton arrived at my house at 2:00 p.m. carrying a leather briefcase and an expression that said she'd seen everything and was surprised by nothing. She was maybe 50, with steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob and eyes that could probably cut through lies like a laser. She wore a black suit and sensible heels, and when she shook my hand, her grip was firm and warm. Mrs. Mitchell, Officer Donnelly filled me in on the basics. Before we go any further, I need to tell you that I charge $350 an hour, but the first consultation is free. If you decide to retain me, we'll work out a payment plan that works for your situation. Are you comfortable with that? I nodded numbly. Yes, I need help. Good. Now I need you to tell me everything. And I mean everything. Don't leave anything out because you think it's not important or because you're embarrassed. Can you do that? So I told her everything. Dorothy's warning, Lucas's behavior over the past months, the midnight visitor, the business card, the changed passwords, the power of attorney I never signed. Margaret took notes on a legal pad, her pen moving rapidly. When I finished, she looked up at me. Mrs. Mitchell, may I call you Sarah? Please. Sarah, I'm going to be direct with you. What your husband has done, if we can prove it, constitutes several serious crimes. Forgery, fraud, potentially elder abuse, though at 58 you're technically not quite in that category. But the power of attorney fraud alone could send him to prison. I felt sick. I don't want to send him to prison. I just want my house safe. I want him to stop. I understand. But Sarah, you need to understand something. Your husband isn't just hiding money or having an affair. He's attempting to steal your home. The home your mother left you. That's not a small thing. That's not something we can fix with marriage counseling. What do I do? First, we need to see what documentation Nathan Rodriguez sends to the police. Then I need you to do something that's going to be difficult. She leaned forward. I need you to search your husband's office. His papers, his computer, if you can access it, his phone records, bank statements, anything you can find. Can you do that? He keeps the office locked. Can you get in? I thought about it. There's a spare key in the garage. He doesn't know I know about it. Then that's where we start. Officer Donnelly had left to file his report, but he'd promised to send me copies of everything Rodriguez submitted. Margaret and I went upstairs to Lucas's office. The door was locked as expected. I went down to the garage, my hands shaking, and found the spare key taped under the workbench. Lucas had hidden it there years ago after locking himself out of the office once. He thought I didn't know. I'd always known. The key turned smoothly in the lock. The door opened. Lucas's office was neat to the point of being sterile. A desk with a computer, filing cabinets, a bookshelf with old trucking manuals and some paperback thrillers. Nothing personal. No family photos, no mementos. How had I never noticed how cold this room was? Start with the filing cabinets, Margaret said, pulling on a pair of thin gloves she'd produced from her briefcase. Look for anything related to property legal documents or financial institutions you don't recognize. The first two drawers were innocuous. Old tax returns, vehicle registrations, insurance papers. The third drawer was locked. Do you have a key? Margaret asked. No. She pulled a small toolkit from her briefcase. I didn't see anything. You understand? I understand. It took her less than 2 minutes to pick the lock. The drawer slid open. Inside was a manila folder thick with papers. Margaret lifted it out carefully, set it on the desk, and opened it. The first document made my blood run cold. Power of attorney, know all men by these presents, that I, Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell of 1247 Maple Street, Cedar Falls, Iowa, do hereby make, constitute, and appoint Lucas Robert Mitchell as my true and lawful attorney in fact. The signature at the bottom looked like mine, almost exactly like mine, but I had never seen this document before in my life. Look at the date, Margaret said quietly. September 18th, the day of my spinal surgery. He did it at the hospital, I whispered, while I was unconscious. He must have brought the papers, forged my signature, and then, how did he get it notarized? Margaret flipped to the next page. A notary seal, the name Patricia Vance, Cedar Falls Hospital. Hospital notaries are often just administrative staff, Margaret said. If your husband presented this while you were in recovery, claimed you'd signed it right before the procedure, she might have notarized it without actually witnessing your signature. It happens more than it should. She kept reading through the documents. Her expression got darker with each page. Sarah, this gives him power to do anything with marital property. Sell it, mortgage it, transfer it, anything. The next document was worse. Preliminary sales agreement. Property 1247 Maple Street, Cedar Falls, Iowa. Seller Lucas Robert Mitchell, acting as attorney in fact for Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, buyer. Delaware Investment Holdings, LLC. Sale price, $365,000. Closing date, December 27th, 2024, December 27th. That was in 5 days. He's selling my house, I said. The words didn't feel real. He's actually selling my mother's house. Keep looking, Margaret said grimly. The next papers were from a financial institution I'd never heard of, Midwest Capital Solutions. A loan agreement. Lucas Mitchell borrower. Amount $185,000. Interest rate 18% annual. Collateral 1247 Maple Street. This is a hard money lender, Margaret said. Basically a legal loan shark. These companies prey on people who can't get traditional loans. 18% is outrageous, but technically legal. The terms here, she scanned the document. If he doesn't pay by December 30th, they can foreclose on the house immediately. No grace period. But he can't use the house as collateral. It's not his. With the fraudulent power of attorney, he could. Sarah, I think your husband took out this loan months ago, and now he's trying to sell the house to pay it off before the deadline. I felt like I was going to be sick. Why would he need $185,000? Keep looking. At the bottom of the folder was a USB drive. I held it up. Let's see what's on it, Margaret said. I plugged it into Lucas's computer. It wasn't password protected. Why would it be when the office was locked? The USB contained hundreds of files. Screenshots, photos, PDFs. Margaret opened one at random. It was a screenshot from a website, Bet King Sports Wagering, an account in Lucas's name. Transaction history going back 4 years. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely use the mouse. I opened another file, another betting site, then another, and another. 4 years of gambling. Sports mostly. Basketball, football, baseball. Thousands of dollars per bet. Sometimes he won. More often he lost. Margaret pulled out a calculator and started adding. I just sat there staring at the screen, watching my marriage dissolve into numbers and lies. Sarah, Margaret said finally, as near as I can calculate from these records, your husband has lost approximately $340,000 gambling over the past 4 years. The number didn't even feel real. That's not all, she continued, opening more files. He took out a second mortgage on his truck, $35,000. Credit cards maxed out another $40,000. And this loan from Midwest Capital, $185,000. In total, he's approximately $260,000 in debt right now. How? My voice came out as a whisper. How did I not know? He kept it separate from your joint finances. Look, he has 3 bank accounts you probably don't know about. All the gambling deposits and withdrawals went through these. He was very careful to keep it hidden. I clicked through more files, and then I found the emails. They were from someone named Big Mike. No last name, no signature, just messages that got progressively more threatening. October 15th, Lucas, you're 2 months behind. I've been patient, but my patience is running out. You have until November 30 to bring the account current, or we start adding penalties. You don't want penalties. November 20th, where's my money, Lucas? You're avoiding my calls. That's not smart. I know where you live. I know where your wife works. Don't make this ugly. December 5th. This is your last warning. December 30th, full payment. $185,000 plus $15,000 in late fees. If you don't pay, we'll take the house and whatever else we can get. We know where your daughter lives, too. Seattle's a long way from Iowa, but not far enough. I felt the blood drain from my face. He threatened Emma. These are extortion, Margaret said immediately. This is illegal. We need to forward these to the police right now. There was one more email from 3 days ago. December 12th, Lucas. I don't know what game you're playing, but you better not be thinking about running. We have eyes everywhere. The house sale better go through or you'll regret it. Your wife, too. Remember what happened to Jimmy T when he tried to skip town? They're still finding pieces. Oh, God, I whispered. He's going to run. He's going to sell the house, pay off Big Mike, and disappear with whatever's left. Margaret was already on her phone. James, it's Margaret. You need to get back to Sarah Mitchell's house. Now. We found something. Officer Donnelly came back with a detective this time. Detective Linda Torres, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who listened to everything with an expression of controlled fury. Mrs. Mitchell, she said when Margaret and I finished explaining, I need to take all of these documents as evidence. The computer too, if necessary. We're looking at multiple felonies here. Fraud, forgery, extortion. This Big Mike character is looking at serious prison time. What about Lucas? I asked. Depends on what he knew and when. If he was coerced into this by loan sharks, that's different from if he voluntarily entered into it. Either way, the fraudulent power of attorney is on him. That's forgery, and it's a Class D felony in Iowa. 2 to 5 years. I don't want him to go to prison, I said. I just want this to stop. I want my house safe. Detective Torres exchanged a look with Officer Donnelly. Mrs. Mitchell, I understand this is your husband, but he committed crimes, multiple crimes, against you. Whether you want to press charges or not, the state may press them anyway. Margaret put a hand on my arm. Sarah, think about this carefully. Lucas tried to steal your home, your mother's home, the home she worked 2 jobs to give you, and he was willing to leave you homeless to save himself from his own mistakes. Is that someone who deserves your protection? I thought about my mother, thought about her working as a nurse during the day and cleaning offices at night. Thought about her coming home exhausted, her hands red and raw from bleach and hard work, but always smiling at me, always making sure I had everything I needed. Baby girl, you're stronger than you know. What do we do next? I asked quietly. First, we need to freeze all assets, Margaret said. File an emergency restraining order preventing Lucas from selling or mortgaging any property. I'll file that today, and we can have a hearing as early as tomorrow if we can get on the judge's emergency docket. Second, Detective Torres added, we need to locate your husband. Do you know where he is? I pulled out my phone. No messages from Lucas since last night. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. He turned off his phone, I said. Does he have family friends he might go to? His brother lives in Minnesota. His mother died years ago. He doesn't really have close friends, just work acquaintances. What about his truck? Can you track it? I shook my head. I don't know. Maybe his company can. Officer Donnelly was already making calls. Margaret continued laying out the plan. Third, we contact Nathan Rodriguez and Pinnacle Real Estate, inform them that the power of attorney was fraudulent and any sale based on it is void. Fourth, we contact this Delaware Investment Holdings and inform them the same. And fifth, she paused, her expression softening slightly. You need to decide if you're going to give Lucas a chance to explain himself. He already explained, I said bitterly. He told me I was useless, that the house was worth more than our marriage, that I should start looking for apartments. When did he say that? Last night, before he left. Margaret and Detective Torres exchanged another look. Sarah, Margaret said gently, I think you should prepare yourself for the possibility that Lucas has been planning this for a long time. The gambling addiction, the secret accounts, the fraudulent documents, these weren't spur-of-the-moment decisions. This was calculated. My phone rang. Unknown number. Answer it, Detective Torres said. Put it on speaker. My hands shook as I accepted the call. Hello? Sarah, Lucas's voice, rough, exhausted. Sarah, I know you found everything by now. Where are you, Lucas? Doesn't matter. I wanted to call, before everything falls apart completely. Falls apart. I felt anger rising hot and clean. You made everything fall apart. You forged my signature. You tried to steal my mother's house. I didn't have a choice. His voice broke. You don't understand. Big Mike, he was going to kill me, Sarah. Kill me, and maybe you too. I had to do something. You could have told me, we could have faced it together. We could have sold the house, legally paid off your debts, started over. And then what? Lucas laughed, bitter and broken. Live in some apartment. Watch you resent me every day for losing your precious mother's house. I couldn't do that. I couldn't watch you hate me. So instead you made me hate you by stealing from me. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. God, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I'm weak. I'm a coward. I got into gambling because I felt worthless. You were the nurse saving lives. I was just a truck driver. When I won, it felt like I was somebody, like I mattered. You mattered to me? I whispered. You were my husband, the father of my daughter. That mattered, Lucas, until you threw it away. I know. His voice was thick with tears. I know, and now it's too late. They're coming for me, Sarah. Big Mike's guys. They know the house sale fell through. They know I can't pay. I'm a dead man. Detective Torres was frantically writing on a notepad. Keep him talking. Where is he? Lucas, where are you? Let us help you. The police can protect you from Big Mike if you testify against him. I can't. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Sarah, I need you to know, I did love you, once, before I destroyed everything. I hope you can find happiness, maybe with someone who deserves you. Lucas, don't... The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding. Trace the call, Detective Torres snapped at Officer Donnelly. Now. But I already knew what they'd find. A burner phone. Untraceable. My husband was in the wind, and the nightmare was just beginning. The next 72 hours were a blur of police stations, lawyers' offices, and sleepless nights. Margaret filed the emergency restraining order that same afternoon. By the next morning, December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, we were standing in front of Judge Patricia Hawthorne, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes that had seen every kind of family tragedy imaginable. The courtroom was small, just a hearing room, really. Margaret presented our case, the fraudulent power of attorney, the medical records proving I was unconscious when it was supposedly signed, the forged signature analysis from a handwriting expert Margaret had hired overnight. Lucas's lawyer, a nervous young man named Brad Simmons, who'd clearly been hired by Midwest Capital Solutions, tried to argue that the power of attorney was legitimate, that I had signed it, that this was just a marital dispute. Judge Hawthorne shut him down in 30 seconds. Mr. Simmons, I have medical records here showing Mrs. Mitchell was under general anesthesia at the exact time this document was supposedly signed. Unless you're suggesting she achieved a medical miracle and woke up mid-surgery to sign legal documents, I suggest you stop wasting this court's time. She granted the restraining order. All property transactions were frozen. The house sale to Delaware Investment Holdings was voided. The fraudulent power of attorney was declared null and void. Furthermore, Judge Hawthorne said, looking directly at the space where Lucas should have been sitting, I'm issuing a warrant for the arrest of Lucas Robert Mitchell on charges of forgery, fraud, and attempted theft. Mr. Simmons, you will inform your client if you're in contact with him that turning himself in voluntarily will be looked upon favorably by this court. Brad Simmons gathered his papers with shaking hands. Your Honor, I haven't been able to reach Mr. Mitchell since yesterday. I was hired by Midwest Capital Solutions to represent their interests, not his specifically. Then I suggest Midwest Capital Solutions find a new strategy, the judge said dryly, because this fraudulent loan agreement isn't worth the paper it's printed on. Dismissed. We walked out of the courthouse into a bright, cold December morning. The snow from earlier in the week had been plowed into gray mountains at the edges of the parking lot. Everything looked dirty and tired. What happens now? I asked Margaret. Now we wait. The police are looking for Lucas. In the meantime, you need to secure your house and your finances. Change all the locks. Get a security system installed. Move your money to new accounts he can't access. What about Big Mike and Midwest Capital? Margaret's expression darkened. That's more complicated. Detective Torres is investigating them, but these organizations are often hard to pin down. They operate in legal gray areas. The threats against you, those are definitely illegal, and if they contact you again, you call 911 immediately. Understood. I nodded, but my hands were shaking. Margaret, I'm scared. What if they come after me? What if... Sarah. She gripped my shoulders, forcing me to meet her eyes. You are not alone in this. You have me. You have the police. And you have something Lucas never counted on. What's that? You're a fighter. You just didn't know it yet. Back at home, I sat in the kitchen drinking coffee I couldn't taste, staring at my phone. No calls from Lucas. No messages from Emma I hadn't told her yet. How do you tell your daughter that her father tried to steal your home to pay gambling debts? The doorbell rang, making me jump. I peered through the window. A woman stood on my porch, elderly and familiar. Dorothy. I flung open the door. Dorothy, how did you... Saw the police cars yesterday, she said simply. And I heard from Helen Peterson what's been happening. Thought you might need a friend. I burst into tears. Dorothy came inside, took off her worn coat, and made me sit down while she made fresh coffee and grilled cheese sandwiches, the kind of simple comfort food my mother used to make when I was sick. "Now," she said, setting a plate in front of me, "tell old Dorothy everything." So I did. All of it. The whole terrible story. When I finished, Dorothy sat back in her chair, her weathered hands wrapped around her coffee mug. 40 years ago, she said quietly, my husband did almost the same thing. Not gambling, he had a whole other family. Been supporting them for 6 years while I thought we were just struggling financially. One day he told me he was leaving, taking our savings, leaving me with 3 children and a mountain of debt. Oh, Dorothy, I'm so sorry. Don't be. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. She smiled and it transformed her face. I got angry. Really, truly angry for the first time in my life. And that anger made me strong. I worked 3 jobs, raised my babies, sent all 3 to college, bought my own house, nothing fancy, but it was mine. She leaned forward. What I'm telling you is this. Lucas took a lot from you. Your trust, your sense of security, maybe even your ability to believe in marriage. But he didn't take your strength. That was always yours. Your mama knew it. That's why she left you the house in your name only. She knew. Knew what? That someday you might need to stand on your own, and that when that day came, you'd be ready. I wiped my eyes. I don't feel ready. Nobody ever does, baby, but you're doing it anyway. That's what strength is. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Officer Donnelly. Mrs. Mitchell, we've located your husband. My heart stopped. We're Motel 6 outside Des Moines. He's been there since the night he left. He's not trying very hard to hide, still using his credit cards his phone is on. Honestly, I think he wants to be found. What happens now? Detective Torres is heading there now with a warrant. We'll have him in custody within a few hours. But Sarah, Donnelly's expression was troubled. There's something else. We've been monitoring activity around your house. A dark sedan has driven past 4 times in the last 2 days. Different car than Rodriguez's SUV. We think it might be associates of Midwest Capital. Dorothy stood up. I'm staying here. Sarah shouldn't be alone. Actually, Donnelly said, we're assigning a patrol car to drive by every hour, and I'd recommend that security system sooner rather than later. Lucas was arrested at 3:47 p.m. on December 23rd. He didn't resist. According to Detective Torres, he'd been sitting in his motel room watching TV, surrounded by empty whiskey bottles and pizza boxes, looking like he was waiting for the end of the world. They brought him back to Cedar Falls and booked him into county jail. The charges were extensive forgery, fraud, attempted theft, filing false documents. Bail was set at $100,000. Lucas couldn't make bail. Margaret asked if I wanted to see him. I said no. But Emma called that night crying. Mom, what's happening? The police called me. They said Dad's been arrested. They said he tried to steal your house. That can't be true. Tell me it's not true. I sat on my mother's old couch in my mother's house that Lucas had tried to steal, and I told my daughter the truth. She didn't believe me at first, made excuses, said there must be a misunderstanding. But when I sent her the court documents, the evidence, the screenshots of gambling losses, she went silent. I'm coming home, she said finally. I'll catch a flight tomorrow, Christmas Eve. I need to see you. Emma, you don't have to. Mom, her voice cracked. My dad tried to make you homeless. I need to come home. After we hung up, I sat in the dark living room watching the Christmas lights on the houses across the street. The Hendersons had put up an inflatable Santa. The Petersons had white icicle lights that sparkled in the cold air. Normal people living normal lives with normal problems. I envied them. The doorbell rang at 9:30 p.m. I froze. Officer Donnelly had said they'd drive by every hour, but it wasn't time yet. Dorothy had gone home to feed her grandbabies, promising to come back in the morning. I was alone. I crept to the window and peered out. A man stood on my porch. Big, maybe 6'4", wearing an expensive leather jacket despite the cold. He had a shaved head and the kind of face that had seen violence and dealt it out in equal measure. He knocked again, louder. Mrs. Mitchell, I know you're home. I just want to talk. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911, kept my thumb over the send button. Go away, I called through the door. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I'm not doing anything illegal. Just standing on your porch wanting to have a conversation." His voice was surprisingly smooth, educated. 5 minutes of your time, Mrs. Mitchell? That's all I'm asking. Are you Big Mike? A pause, then a laugh. Michael Thompson. But yeah, some people call me Big Mike. Your husband owes me a considerable sum of money, Mrs. Mitchell. I'm here to discuss repayment options. Lucas's debts aren't my debts. Talk to your lawyer. Oh, I have lawyers. Very good lawyers. Who've explained that legally you're correct. But Mrs. Mitchell, I'm not talking about legalities. I'm talking about practicalities. My hand was shaking on the phone. If you threaten me, I will press charges. The police have your emails to Lucas. Extortion is a crime. Those emails were sent to your husband, not to you, and they were simply explaining the consequences of defaulting on a loan. That's not extortion, that's business. He knocked again, gentler this time. Please, Mrs. Mitchell. 5 minutes, face to face. You'll feel safer, I promise. Every instinct screamed not to open the door, but something else whispered that running from this wouldn't make it go away. I hit send on 911 first. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man at my door. Michael Thompson. He's connected to a loan shark operation. I'm at 1247 Maple Street. I'm going to talk to him, but I want police here. Ma'am, do not engage with... I put the phone in my pocket, still connected, so 911 could hear everything. Then I opened the door. Big Mike smiled. Up close, he was younger than I'd thought, maybe 45. Well-groomed. Expensive watch. He could have been a banker or a lawyer. Nothing about him screamed criminal. That made him more frightening. Thank you for seeing me, he said politely. May I come in? No. You can say whatever you need to say from right there. Fair enough. He clasped his hands in front of him, almost prayer-like. Mrs. Mitchell, your husband borrowed $185,000 from my company. He signed a contract. He agreed to terms. He used your house as collateral. Illegally. He forged my signature. The court voided that contract. So I've been informed, which is why I'm here. He leaned against the porch railing, casual. See, from a legal standpoint, you're absolutely right. The contract is void. I can't touch your house. But from a practical standpoint, I'm out $185,000. That's a lot of money, Mrs. Mitchell. That's not my problem. It could be. His smile never wavered. Your husband is in jail. He has no assets. He can't pay me back. You, on the other hand, own a house worth approximately $380,000. Now I'm not asking for the full amount Lucas owes. I'm a reasonable man. How about we settle for $100,000, you take out a mortgage, pay me, and we all go our separate ways? No. Think carefully, Mrs. Mitchell. My company has a reputation to maintain. When someone defaults on a loan, there are consequences. Your husband understood that. I'd hate for those consequences to extend to you. In my pocket, I knew 911 was recording every word. I just had to keep him talking until the police arrived. Mr. Thompson, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady, you're not a reasonable man. You're a criminal who preys on desperate people. You charged my husband 18% interest that's usurious. You sent him threatening emails mentioning my daughter. You threatened violence. That's extortion. And now you're standing on my porch trying to intimidate me into paying a debt that isn't mine. His smile faded slightly. I know the police are investigating your company, I continued. I know they have your emails. I know that every word you're saying right now is being recorded by 911, who I called before I opened this door. So unless you want to add more charges to whatever you're already facing, I suggest you leave. Now. For a long moment, Big Mike just stared at me. The friendly mask slipped and I saw what was underneath. Something cold, calculating, dangerous. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. No, Lucas made the mistake. You made the mistake of threatening me. I'm just standing up for myself. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Big Mike straightened up, adjusted his expensive jacket. This isn't over, Mrs. Mitchell. Yes, I said firmly. It is. 2 police cars screeched to a halt in front of my house. Officer Donnelly jumped out of one hand on his weapon. Detective Torres emerged from the other. Michael Thompson, Torres called out. We'd like to ask you some questions about threatening communications sent to Lucas Mitchell and potential extortion charges. Big Mike didn't run, didn't resist. He just smiled that cold smile and said, I want my lawyer. That's your right, Torres said, handcuffing him anyway. You're under arrest for extortion, criminal threatening, and operating an illegal lending operation. You have the right to remain silent." I watched from my doorway as they put him in the police car. He looked at me once through the window, his eyes promising that this wasn't really over. But I stared right back. Because I wasn't the same woman who'd stood in this doorway a week ago, scared and uncertain. I was Sarah Elizabeth Morrison Mitchell, and I wasn't backing down. Emma arrived on Christmas Eve, stepping off the plane looking so much like the little girl I'd raised that my heart broke all over again. She was 29 now, a successful software engineer, independent and strong. But when she saw me waiting at the arrivals gate, she dropped her bag and ran into my arms like she was 6 years old. "Mom," she sobbed into my shoulder. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have known. I should have seen." "Shh, you couldn't have known. I didn't even know." We held each other while travelers flowed around us, and I felt something in my chest unclench. My daughter was here. Whatever else happened, I had this. Back at the house, Emma walked through each room like she was seeing it for the first time. "This is Grandma's house," she said softly, running her hand along the banister. "I learned to walk on these floors. She taught me to bake in that kitchen, and Dad tried to sell it. To strangers. For gambling money." "Emma." "No, Mom. Let me be angry. You've been making excuses for him my whole life. Dad's just stressed. Dad works hard. Dad doesn't mean it." She turned to face me, tears streaming down her face. "He tried to make you homeless. He forged legal documents. He put you in danger from loan sharks. Why aren't you angrier?" The question stopped me cold. Why wasn't I angrier? "I am angry," I said slowly. "I'm furious, but I'm tired, Emma. I'm 58 years old, and I'm tired of being angry at a man who isn't worth my energy anymore. So what are you going to do?" "I'm going to divorce him. I'm going to make sure he never has access to my finances or my property again. And then I'm going to live my life." Emma wiped her eyes. "Good. That's good. And Mom, I'm sorry I didn't visit more. I'm sorry I left you alone with him." "You were living your life. That's what children are supposed to do." "No, I was avoiding coming home because being around Dad was exhausting. He was always stressed, always angry about money, always making these little digs about your weight or your back or how you didn't work anymore. I should have said something. I should have—" "Emma." I pulled her into another hug. "You're here now. That's what matters." We spent Christmas Eve putting up a small tree, something I hadn't bothered with when I thought I'd be alone. We strung popcorn like my mother used to do. We made cookies. We watched old Christmas movies. And for a few hours I forgot about Lucas and Big Mike and lawyers and police. I just had my daughter back. On Christmas morning, Dorothy came over with her 2 grandbabies, Jeremiah, age 7, and Keisha, age 5. They tore into the small presents I'd hastily wrapped the night before with a joy that filled the house with light. "You didn't have to get them anything," Dorothy protested, but her eyes were wet. "I wanted to. They remind me of when Emma was little, before everything got complicated." We had a huge breakfast, Emma and Dorothy bonding over scrambled eggs and stories about their childhoods. The kids played with Emma's old toys that I'd kept in the attic, things I'd thought I might give to grandchildren someday. The doorbell rang at noon. Emma jumped up. "I'll get it." She came back carrying a giant poinsettia with a card attached. Her face was pale. "It's from Dad," she said quietly, handing me the card. I opened it with shaking hands. "Sarah, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I wanted you to know that I never stopped loving you even when I stopped showing it, even when I let my weaknesses destroy us. I'm not asking you to drop the charges. I deserve whatever happens to me. I just wanted you to know that you were the best part of my life, and I threw it away for nothing. Tell Emma I love her. Tell her not to end up like me. Merry Christmas." "Lucas," I set the card down carefully, my hands not shaking at all. "Are you okay, Mom?" Emma asked. "Yes," I said, and I realized it was true. "Yes, I am." I threw the card in the trash. The poinsettia, I kept it, was beautiful and the plant hadn't done anything wrong. But Lucas's words, those I didn't need anymore. The legal proceedings took 3 months to fully resolve. Lucas pled guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence, 7 years in prison, with the possibility of parole in 5 if he maintained good behavior and completed a gambling addiction treatment program. Big Mike Michael Thompson and 3 of his associates were charged with operating an illegal lending operation, extortion, and criminal threatening. Their trial was set for the fall, but their lawyers were already negotiating plea deals. Midwest Capital Solutions was shut down by federal regulators. The fraudulent sale of my house was officially voided. Delaware Investment Holdings, LLC turned out to be a shell company that dissolved the moment the investigation started. I filed for divorce. Lucas didn't contest it. The decree was final in 90 days. The house, my mother's house, remained mine. Only mine. 6 months after that terrible December night, I stood in the same kitchen where Lucas had yelled at me, where I'd drunk coffee while my world fell apart, and I looked around at what had changed. New locks on all the doors. A security system with cameras. My name, just my name on all the accounts and bills and documents. But more than that, plants on the windowsill because I'd always wanted a garden, and Lucas said they were a waste of money. Paint samples on the wall because I was going to repaint the living room a warm gold instead of the beige Lucas preferred. A stack of library books on the counter because I'd started volunteering there 3 days a week and discovered I loved it. I'd also enrolled in a watercolor painting class at the community center. Started learning French through an app on my phone, daydreaming about maybe someday taking a trip to Paris. I was 59 years old, and I was finally learning who Sarah Mitchell was when she wasn't defined by being someone's wife. Emma called every Sunday. Sometimes she came to visit, bringing her new boyfriend, a kind software engineer named David, who actually listened when I talked and remembered details from previous conversations. "You seem happy, Mom," Emma had said on her last visit. "Really happy, not fake happy like before." "I am happy," I'd told her. "It's strange. I thought losing the marriage would destroy me, but it freed me." Dorothy stopped by on a warm June afternoon, bringing fresh tomatoes from her garden. "How are those grandbabies?" I asked, making lemonade. "Growing like weeds. Jeremiah starts 3rd grade in the fall. Can you believe it?" She settled into a kitchen chair with a satisfied sigh. "And how are you, baby girl?" I smiled at the nickname, the one my mother used to use. Dorothy had adopted it naturally, filling a space I hadn't known was empty. "I'm good. Really good. I got a call from Margaret yesterday. Lucas is up for a parole hearing in 3 years instead of 5. Good behavior, excellent progress in the gambling addiction program. How do you feel about that?" "I don't know. I don't hate him anymore. I don't love him either. He's just someone I used to know. Someone who made terrible choices." I poured lemonade into glasses. "Margaret said he wants to write to me. Apologize properly. She said I don't have to respond if I don't want to." "And do you want to?" "Maybe. Eventually. Not to forgive him exactly, but to close that chapter completely. To be able to say I've moved on." Dorothy nodded. "That's wise. Forgiveness isn't for him anyway. It's for you. So you don't have to carry all that anger around." We sat in comfortable silence, sipping lemonade, listening to birds in the backyard. "Dorothy," I said suddenly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "That night at Walmart, how did you really know about Lucas, about the snow, about everything?" Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled that mysterious smile I'd come to know well. "Your mama and I, we had a gift. Some call it intuition. Some call it second sight. I saw you in that store, saw the worry in your eyes, the way you kept checking your phone. Saw your husband's number flash on the screen and the way your whole body tensed up. I recognized that fear. I'd worn it myself for years. But the snow? I saw him outside the store earlier talking to another man. Heated conversation. Money changed hands. I heard the word midnight and assessment. I put the pieces together. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was just paying attention. Either way, I knew you needed to see the truth. And I knew fresh snow would show you exactly what you needed to see." "You saved my life," I whispered. "No, honey. You saved your own life. I just reminded you to keep your eyes open." December came again, bringing snow and cold and the anniversary of the night that changed everything. I stood at my kitchen window watching the first flakes fall, and I felt peace instead of fear. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Emma standing there with David, both of them grinning. "Surprise, eh?" Emma said. "We took the week off. Thought we'd spend it here, if that's okay." "More than okay," I said, pulling them both inside. "It's perfect." That evening, we decorated the house for Christmas. A real tree this time, tall and full, filling the living room with the scent of pine. Lights strung everywhere. The popcorn garland tradition maintained. Emma found the old ornaments in the attic, the ones from her childhood. "Oh my God, remember this one?" She held up a clay star she'd made in kindergarten. "Grandma kept everything." "She did," I said softly. "She believed in holding on to the good things." We hung the clay star on the highest branch. Later, after David had gone to bed in the guest room and Emma was asleep in her old bedroom, I sat alone in the living room looking at the tree lights in the darkness. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't open it, but something made me look. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Patricia Vance, the notary from Cedar Falls Hospital. I know it's been a year, but I wanted you to know that I testified against my employer about the fraudulent power of attorney. I lost my job, but I couldn't live with what I'd done. I'm truly sorry for my part in what happened to you. I hope you found peace." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Thank you for your honesty. It takes courage to admit mistakes and make them right. I have found peace. I hope you do too." Another buzz. This time from Margaret Stanton. "Merry Christmas, Sarah. Saw the news Big Mike took a plea deal. 15 years. You're safe. You won. Sleep well." I sent back a heart emoji. Then I opened my email and found the draft I'd been working on for 2 weeks. A letter to Lucas. Not forgiving him. Not absolving him. Just closing the circle. "Lucas, your lawyer said you wanted to write to me. I wanted to write first. I don't hate you anymore. I also don't love you. You're a stranger who once shared my life, who made choices that hurt me deeply, and who is now facing the consequences of those choices. I hope prison gives you time to become the man you should have been. I hope you find peace with yourself. I hope you learn that your worth doesn't come from winning bets or controlling things or maintaining an image. I hope you learn to be honest. But I'm not waiting for your redemption. I'm not checking in on your progress. I'm not going to be part of your healing journey. I'm living my own life now. A good life. A happy life. A life where I matter not because of what I can give someone else, but because I exist. That's all I wanted to say. Goodbye, Lucas." Sarah, I sent it. Then I deleted his contact from my phone, blocked his email, removed every digital trace of him from my devices. I was done carrying him with me. Outside, the snow fell thick and white, covering everything in purity, covering the scars and footprints of the past year, creating a blank page. Tomorrow was December 16th. 1 year and 1 day since Dorothy had warned me not to touch the snow. 1 year since the snow had shown me the truth that saved my life. I walked to the window and pressed my hand against the cold glass. "Thank you, Mama," I whispered to the night. "Thank you for the house. Thank you for the strength. Thank you for knowing I'd need both." Somewhere in the distance, a church bell chimed midnight. A new day, a new year ahead, a new life already begun. I smiled and went to bed in a house that was mine, in a life that was mine with a future that was entirely, completely, beautifully mine. The snow had revealed the truth, but I had SA. The letter arrived on a Tuesday in March. I just returned from my shift at the library, my arms full of groceries and a new watercolor set I'd splurged on. The French class I'd been taking for 2 years was finally paying off. I was reading simple novels in French, now planning that trip to Paris for the fall. The envelope was simple white with a return address from Iowa State Penitentiary. "Lucas, I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. Sarah, I don't expect you to respond to this. You made it clear in your last letter that we're done, and I respect that. I'm writing because my parole hearing is next month, and my counselor suggested I make amends to the people I've hurt. Not for forgiveness, I don't deserve that, but for my own recovery. I'm 2 years sober from gambling. I attend GA meetings twice a week in here. I've gotten my GED, never finished high school, something I was always ashamed of, and I'm taking college courses through a prison program. I'm learning who I am when I'm not running from myself. Emma visits sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. She told me about your trip to Paris, about your painting class, about how happy you seem. I'm glad. Truly. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too much of a coward to face my problems. I let addiction and pride and fear turn me into someone I don't recognize. I can't undo what I did. But I can promise you this, I will never gamble again. I will never lie to protect myself at someone else's expense. I will never take the easy way out. I hope you have a beautiful life, Sarah. You deserve nothing less. Lucas, I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe I wouldn't. But I realized reading it that I felt nothing but a distant sort of pity for the man who'd written it. He'd lost everything trying to avoid losing anything. I'd lost everything and found myself. The doorbell rang. Dorothy right on time for our weekly dinner. Behind her were Jeremiah and Keisha, both taller now, both grinning. "Miss Sarah," Keisha ran up the steps. "I made honor roll Grandma said you'd want to see. Of course I want to see." We went inside into the warm house that smelled like the roast I'd put in the slow cooker that morning. Emma called while we were eating, her voice bright with news about a promotion at work. After dinner, Dorothy and I sat on the porch, despite the cool evening, wrapped in blankets, watching the neighborhood kids ride bikes in the fading light. "You ever regret it?" Dorothy asked. "Not taking him back when he got clean?" "No," I said immediately. "Getting clean doesn't undo the damage, doesn't erase the betrayal. I'm glad he's getting better, but that's his journey. Mine is separate now." "Good." Dorothy patted my hand. "You know what your mama would say." "What she'd say, you finally learned the most important thing: you can't save people who don't want to save themselves. But you can always save yourself." I smiled. She was a wise woman. She was, and she raised a wise daughter. We sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned pink and gold, the March air still carrying a hint of winter but promising spring. Somewhere Lucas was in prison working on his recovery. Somewhere Big Mike was serving his sentence, paying for his crimes. Somewhere Emma was building her career and her life. And here I was home, in the house my mother left me, living the life I'd saved, finally completely whole.